Welcome back everyone. In this segment we are going to go into the report view, which is one of the three views that we talked about earlier in previous lessons. So let's dive straight into report view, and once you, as I mentioned, you've seen the screen before, once you've closed off the welcome splash screen, you will be able to see this report view. And if you mouse over this icon, which looks like a bar chart, there will be this tips or hint that pops out that inform you this is the report view itself. So let's look into the different areas of the report view. From the top, you have the ribbon itself. You have the home, insert, multiple so-called options for you to dive in further. You of course have this title bar on top here. You have your usual save, so-called undo or redo options. You have the name of the Power BI desktop, and finally who is logged in right now. If you don't log in, basically this will not show at all. And over here we looked at this previously. This is the views bar, which shows you the report, the data model view, as well as the data as well as the model view. And then you have the canvas here, which is the area that you build all your visuals. And on the right here, there are three panes. You have the filter pane, you have the visualization pane, and finally the fields pane. This is not going to make a lot of sense to you right now. And when we actually start creating report, the reason or the rationale of the existence of these panes will become more obvious. And there's also the page tabs here. If one page of report is insufficient, you can actually create multiple tabs as well to provide more visuals. I want to talk a little bit about the ribbon itself, the ribbon being this portion here. File is not part of the report view. Home, insert, modeling, view, and help is part of the report view. And if you dig in a little bit more, I've given you a tree diagram here so that you can actually see. File, as I mentioned, is common to all three views, so it's not something that we will dig into right now. But under home, you will be able to see clipboard, which is this sub area here. Data, this is the data group, which has these so-called functionality. And then you have your queries, which is this one here. Insert, this one here. Calculations, which is these two icons, and finally share, which is the published. So within home, which is this one here, you have these sub areas. Under insert, which is this next sub menu here, if you can call it that, you notice that the so-called icons within the ribbons change altogether. You have pages, which is this one, visuals, meaning you can insert, this is create a new page, visuals, add more bar charts or other visuals that you want to. AI visuals are AI driven visuals. Power platform, if there are other Power apps that you utilize, and elements, which are some of the so-called text box, buttons, shapes, or images that you want to embed into the report itself. And then you have modeling, not to be confused with the data modeling view or relationship view. This modeling comes under report view, which is this third sub menu here. You can see that there's relationships, there are calculations that you can perform, whether there's a new table, new column, or new measures. Page refreshed, where there's change being detected. And then you have the what if for scenario analysis, security, and finally question and answer as well. So let's continue to the next two sub-menu. You have the view menu, which allow you to actually customize further in terms of themes, scale to fit, mobile, page, as well as show panes. Now the purpose of this whole so-called view is to allow you to customize in terms of the outlook, the view that you like your so-called viewer to see. Naturally, this is where, with that mobile icon being there, it allows you to create and set up your mobile view as well. Further down is the help, and finally this is this last sub-menu. It allows you to dig in a little bit more in terms of about Power BI, some documentations. There's the video help before and support, and then you have your community of either users or the developers. You can also submit idea of what you like them to include as well, and finally some examples and consulting services provided by the Microsoft team itself. So this is a fairly broad stroke walkthrough of these 5 sub-menus within report view. This to allow you to actually visualize them and be able to see where to actually find these so-called functionalities. There are some special features that's common throughout all 3 views, be it the report view, the data view, or the relationship view. These special features are consistent throughout, so it pays to actually just walk through them so that you are familiar that they do exist, and so that you're not disoriented as you actually move around. There is the collapse view, shortcut keys, permanent versus contextual tabs, file menu, which we talked about just now. I'm going to go into a little bit more details, the panes as well as the canvas. You notice that the ribbon itself can be collapsed. If I will fire up one of the, let me see if I can pull that up for you. If you look at this Power BI, you can actually collapse this ribbon view by clicking this caret. Okay, and notice that it actually flattened it. It just collapsed the view, which is this view here. So if somebody passed you their report and then you open it up and you notice that the layout is all completely different, it's because this has been collapsed. And the next thing is about the alternate window keys to activate some of the key tips. These are the key tips, the M, the V, the Y2 here. This is to guide you along in terms of the shortcut key. It's very, very handy, especially if you want to actually pull out very quickly and you've forgotten what they are. The next so-called features here is the permanent versus contextual tabs. You have the report view, you have the data view, and then you have the model view, as I mentioned. As you click through from report to data, these contextual view will disappear. All right, these, in terms of, I guess this color is slightly brown, are the permanent tabs. The black one here are contextual. So if again I'll switch over to the Power BI, uncollapse this, and you watch how the layout of these 5 tabs disappear down to 2. Notice that insert, modeling, and view collapse. These are the contextual tabs that we talked about, or the contextual view that we talked about. They just collapse and disappear. So this is to keep that in mind, that insert, modeling, and view will only exist in the report view itself. Okay, so move on to the next feature here and talk about file. This file menu here has these sub menu or sub options. You have open report, and you have these are the default reports that you've opened up previously. Save as, get more data, import other reports or export your report, and there are also other features in terms of options and settings to allow you to customize your Power BI desktop further. Okay, let's talk about panes a little bit. We saw this within the report view, and this only looking at this, you can see that there are 3 different panes here. You have the filter, you have the visualization, and fuse panes. These are normally visible when you are in the report view. So notice that there is the filter, there's the visualization, and there's also the fuse. Fuse are your data. All right, it will pop out in rows-based structure, and visuals are the charts that you want to plot, and finally filtering is allows you to, much like Microsoft Excel, allow you to filter specific view that you're looking for, assuming that you built that into the report itself. Filtering could be you want to look at the salesperson's performance individual salesperson, or you can actually filter it by region, or you can filter it by county or country, or by division. So that's really where this part comes in. This is the exciting bit that we will talk a bit more later as we start building the visuals. Right, let's look at the next portion here regarding the so-called panes itself. Now, these are the many panes available. We only looked at filter just now, very briefly. We looked at visualization pane, and also we looked at the view pane. So these are the three. Indeed, if you actually go in the views under the report view, under views, you will see that there are other so-called panes available to you. So there are these 4 other options here as you actually click the icon themselves that will pop up. Do you have the selection? You can of course arrange the tab borders as well. You have the synchronize the slices, bookmark them, and finally performance analyzer, which analyze the report so that you can optimize the speed of your report. Right, now let's come back to the actual canvas itself. We saw this briefly in the motivational examples that I shared with you. So this is the so-called canvas view. This is the where you actually create your report. Notice that there are many ways for you to actually create and design these, and some of these are actually images that or text box that you include. These are the so-called columnar charts, and these are I think these are the scatter plot. There's a few heat maps as well, and notice that these panes here can be collapsed so that you can actually have a much better view of everything. And notice that these tabs are available here as well. And just talked a little bit about the so-called view. When you have data loaded, notice that this file name is no longer untitled. There is actually a specific file name now called COVID-19. And notice that down on the right here under the views pane, you can see that there's row-wise in terms of file name or field name. Okay, so each of these represent a column of data. All right, so you have H65, all, and there are many more that's listed here. So this is so-called the views view. These 2 panes, the view of it remain unchanged. So this is a really fairly quick whirlwind tour of the report view to actually help get you familiarized with the various features of it. We talked a little bit about the view itself, and we talked about some of the special features such as the collapse view, the shortcut keys, the permanent versus contextual tabs as you actually go through the various types of views, such as from going to report, which has 5 tabs. If you go to data as well as the modeling view, it will be different. The file menu itself is on its own, standalone, and finally the panes that we talked about, as well as the canvas of what it looks like when you have data loaded and what it looks like when you actually create your visualization. With that, I'm going to stop, and the next part we're going to go into the data view.